Okay, so we're live again. Make sure everything's working okay. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. It's not quite where I want it to be. All right, I think that'll do. Okay, so for last stream, hi Daphne. For last stream, at the end, my computer crashed. So that's happened a couple times already. First time that happened live, but if it happens again, if I just disappear, you'll know why. Did I resolve the problem? Beats me. Kind of does whatever it wants to do. Usually the situation is this is what I experienced and kind of figured out in the past. Microsoft runs all kinds of stuff in the background, and regardless of if I shut it off or not, because I have a way to be able to do that, it pops right back on again. I can't get rid of it. And I think what I'm going to do is, because I'm running Microsoft browser, which is a huge mistake, but I did it initially in the beginning because it was just so much things I had to do, and I just didn't really want to think about it. And so I just haven't gotten around to changing it. So I'll probably end up changing browsers, but it becomes a hassle. Being able to transfer stuff. In some cases, that's what has to be done. Yeah, run something a little bit more easier on the computer because it'll just all kinds. It's just using up all kinds of CPU and RAM, and so it puts a strain on this program because this program uses a bit of memory and so on and so forth. It requires a bit to run this program live like this. So all that stuff running in the background, just after a while it goes at 100% and it'll lock up, and that's exactly what it did. So hopefully it won't be the case today. And the other reason why when I would play pre-recorded stuff, like, I don't know, see if it'll do it again, but like this song here. Okay, here's another pop-up. All kinds of pop-ups all the time. You purchase software, and then basically you're paying them to advertise to you. It becomes quite annoying. So I don't know if you were able to see that in real time, meaning the way that it's meant to be seen, which looks like I'm actually playing in real time, which I am, but last time I did that, it was all in slow motion, and that's because of what I mentioned before. Anyhow, that's it as far as all the stuff that isn't important to anybody else except for me. It's live, you know. Mostly I'm pretty revealing. Okay, so kind of waiting for people to come in here, if they're going to come in. If not, yeah, what I'm just saying before, if you go back and listen to that when I played that, which was, I don't know what I titled the live. I don't know the title of it, but it was about learning through song, and I played it like 3 different times, and each time it was just in slow motion. It's because of the lag here and because of what was going on with my computer and all that stuff running in the background. It affected how things were working. So that's what I was referring to. You could hear it. I could hear it, but that's not the point. Sylvana, hello. Morning to you. Well, morning to me, anyhow. Good day, or whatever expression works for the time zone. Yeah, I was just referring to all the stuff that's running in the background of my computer. That's the reason why it crashed last time. And it's done it before, but it never did it live because it's done it before using OBS, but not live. And that's the reason why. It's all the Microsoft stuff running in the background that I can't get rid of. Microsoft. Poster boy for the New World Order. I guess a lot of those could fit on the same poster. Anyhow, so what was I going to talk about today? Well, I had a lot of things I would like to talk about, but I don't know if I will or not. But I guess I can just get started with something. All right, I guess I'm going to pull this off. My face still hurts quite a bit. I just took some ibuprofen. At least I can talk. Yesterday I couldn't talk at all. Oh, head hurt, face hurt, swollen. I had a tooth extraction yesterday. I was having problems for a couple weeks, actually. And, oops, I keep pushing the wrong button. Can't see what I'm doing, apparently. All right. Anytime you're ready. It's not like I'm waiting on you or anything. And I was having vertigo and was dizzy. And I cracked my tooth. In fact, the tooth that I had was a root canal. I didn't even know that it wasn't, but root canals always go bad, and I have all these teeth on this side. I got, what is it, 13, 14, 15, 16. They're gone. Just complete gap here on this side. And there was no support for the tooth that was number 13 over here, which is the eye tooth. Ow. My face hurts still. I can't move. I gotta watch what I'm doing here. It's still spotty, still bleeding a little bit. Anyhow, and I got in the habit of eating on this side because I couldn't eat on this side because of my occipital nerve. It's a long story, but I ended up for a long time having to eat on this side, and I just got in the habit of doing that. And it cracked a tooth because there was no support, and it was what I thought it to be, which was the root. It split, and that was going on for a while, a couple weeks, and then I ate again on this side, and I was chewing some beef, and yeah, it's like, oh, then it really hurt, you know. And so I went in and they X-rayed it, and they go, yes, it's split, the root split. I said, is there anything we can do about it? He goes, got to pull it. And I go, well, this is as good a time as any. So that's what I did yesterday. And miserable experience. I mean, I remember having teeth pulled earlier in my life, but as I get older, it just hurts more and lasts longer and bleeds longer. This one wasn't as bad as the last one I had, though. Um, yeah, so I was going to continue to talk about time, and I think I'm going to just spend a lot of time with this subject, and kind of go over it and go over it because there's a lot here, and I've been trying to summarize it a little bit here and there, and it requires really quite a bit of effort to go over it several times. I keep using that word time. Um, and Because it's once it's understood, then it gives you the ability to be able to contemplate it. You know, having an idea of what it is and actually knowing what it is allows you to move your intention into it, and then you're able to visualize it. And so I'm going to try to use terms here that will allow for that to happen. But this is going to take a while. It's not going to be done today. I'm just going to touch in on it again today. But I think this is going to be an ongoing thing because it encompasses everything else. Because we're talking about a time matrice, okay, which is a construct. This is a very, very interesting perspective that I've had for a very, very long time in regard to how things are played out here, how we have different agendas, how we have different um, convictions in regard to this particular, just this particular universe. I was I'm gonna be bouncing around here, but primarily I'm gonna get back to the time thing and how it functions, the design of it, and all that it is, as much as I can. I mentioned this before I go off into this other thing. I mentioned this before about how when you're looking at the code in the design of the construct, you'll see it in a very simple layout in the beginning. You look at the encryption of the initial code, which is referred to as many things. And one of the things that is referred to within Keylontic science is referred to as being the particai, or the point of all union, or the unici. You have all these different names from different perspectives that refers to this, okay? Now, that's from the inside of the construct. On the outside, that's a different thing. And eventually, I want to get to the outside of it, looking in, the whole thing, okay? Because the construct itself, what most people that I've heard say is that they'll look at the construct or come to understand the construct and they step outside of it, but they're still embodied. There is still light, there's still all these things, and I'm going, I know, I'm not guessing, I know that there is a multitude of infinity in regard to different designs, or what we would refer to as source field designs. I don't even like using that word source anymore because it's become like this deity being that controls everything. And it's just switching names up from what it was before when we used the word God. I don't care for that, for a lot of reasons, okay? I'll give you an example in regard to the building of a structure, okay? And the source of that building of that structure is a blueprint, a design concept. And then you have a crew that's skilled coming in and working and building it from the ground up. It's probably a good idea to look at any design structure in the same way, at least from the perspective of there is more than one mind that's involved, but it's in harmony with the process of creating it. Just like when you come in to build a home, as an example, if everybody is equally skilled to what their function is within that build, then all you need is the design of it and it being finished within the design, and then it unfolding into a manifest construct, okay? But I'm not referring to that definition as being here on earth, because there's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, and you always have to have somebody supervising them. Okay, in this case, that's not what I'm referring to. All right, so it's important to be able to look at it from that perspective, because if one examines what's here just in this particular outer world, this harmonic universe, there's that's going on here. All right. So there's not this one being doing all things. So if you think of a source, the better way to look at it is the energetic enabling for that to take place. And I gave the analogy the other day of plugging into a socket, and the electricity is flowing. So what's the source of the electricity, right? What's the power source? That's the better word to use. I know that it's conscious, but there's always more. You have to understand there's always more. Now I'm going to go back to this harmonic universe and look at it. There is governing deities within this harmonic universe. You go into the next, and it's very similar. You go into the next, it's very similar. You have this different stages that's occurring. Okay? Now, like I said, I'm going to be like bouncing around here. So you got to kind of follow me intently. Otherwise, it's like, what is he talking about? If you follow what I'm saying, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay? But I use a lot of detail, and I'm painting a lot of pictures as I go about doing it. And people are not trained to think that way, and I understand that. I'm just different, and this is the way I do it. I see things like a montage, and then I start pointing at it and trying to describe it. Okay? So within this harmonic universe, you have certain beings that have I would refer to as normal attributes, because here on earth we don't have a normal display of our true attributes, which would be telepathy, which would be the ability to be able to regenerate, okay, live longer, and all this other stuff outside of the technology, which is here, but it's hidden. It's been hidden for a long time. There's so many agendas. It's like the sand of the sea here. And there's this fallen state and everything, and there's this huge drama going on here. Okay, now let's back away real quick and get out of the drama and realize, wait a second, that drama was created. And that God deity that's governing it, that's just a role being played. Because I'll look, okay, here's the thing that I want to consider here. When you start looking at these different races, and you start looking at what their conviction is in regard to what they would refer to as creator and all this other stuff, it gets really interesting. And one of the ways to look at what I'm referring to is to begin early within the last two generations here. You go back to the later 50s, or the 50s, that's a good place to start. Go back to the 50s. You look at a Howard Maringer, I think it is, Howard Maringer. Anyhow, the key one that's interesting to me, there's a lot of others, but there's one that's interesting to me that stands out. And this is Valiant Thor, or Val Thor, or whatever, because I see this crossover with this particular being that crosses over to, our contemporary perception and interaction. And for those who may know who Elena Dion is, She calls herself a ambassador for the Galactic Federation. Okay, and I take all that with a grain of salt. No disrespect to anybody, but it's like, you know, I don't know about that. I don't. So, and I'm really not too concerned about it either. So, I'm looking at the bigger picture. A lot of what I see today has been a lot of the things that I've heard and lived through. And I had the experience that I had when I was 12 years old, which was pretty huge. But a lot of activity was taking place during that time period. And a lot of the pronouncements, the things that were being said then, as far as, either the word channel never really existed at that time. These are all contemporary words that are used today. But the messages that were being given, the interruptions through broadcasts, through so-called particular beings that were part of some federation of some sort or whatever. There was a whole lot of things going on, and there was a lot of pronouncements being made. Okay, a lot of words. Some of it seemed to be just. It wasn't very profound or anything like that. It would just. Later on, it reminded me of like evangelical politicians kind of saying all the right words, but really not having a whole lot of substance to what they're saying, but it sounds good as they're saying it because it's delivered in such a conviction in high-sounding tones, so to speak. That's an expression we used to use in Christianity. High-sounding tones, speaking with high-sounding tones. In other words, with confidence of what one's saying, so it has to be true because it sounds like it's true. But there wasn't really any substance to it. And here later on, within this time frame, I still run into a lot of that still yet taking place. And people are just going, oh, yes, thank you, namaste. Whatever. Yeah, so I'm looking at Stranger in the Pentagon, which is a story about Valiant Thor or Val Thor, and Frank E. Strange's, who is connected to it, who actually wrote that book, wrote a couple books. Interesting fellow, um, uh, but it's not really about Frank here. Frank he wore different hats, if you know what I mean. He had developed different abilities and function within society in this world. And one of them was being a pastor, okay? He had other qualifications and everything, but he was also a very strong, he had a strong conviction within Christianity. He was a Christian, and the proclamation of Jesus being, Lord and basically the sole warden, not just a sole warden of this solar system, but of this universe. Okay, and this was also Valiant Thor's conviction. Valiant Thor was a Christian. This is what you don't hear this. It's like, how can you miss this? Because it's very clear, at least according to the book and what's proclaimed in the book. And it's mentioned several times. Those who occupy Venus, at least within that Thor family group, collective, every morning they would have worship service. Okay? And I thought it to be interesting. I'm listening to this because I listened to the audiobook last night. I was going to read it, kind of glean through it, but I found the audiobook, and so I just cheated. So I just thought I'd just go ahead and listen through it. And I'm listening through it, and yeah, it's definitely, this is the conviction. And see, now I'd been Christian for 27 years in this lifetime, okay? And I come to know this being, which is referred to as Jesus. My understanding was through the messianic line, right? Which he was the Mashiach. That's the way I've seen it. And it's a long story, and it's not something I really want to get into at this point, but I come to know that particular being that I had contact, and that was a good experience. That was a really, 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 really good experience. Okay. So I've always kind of, even after I've been on the path that I've been, a path of sovereignty, um, I always look to that and revere that because of just my experience with that. And I contemplated it several times in regard to save you from what? I'm not quite sure. And I'm still open on that in regard to being in manifest reality. Outside of it, it shouldn't matter at all. The reason why is the obvious from what I've been communicating for quite a long period of time here. And that is you are transcendent of this. But there is rules and there's things, there's guidelines, and there's a whole lot of things that can happen when being in manifest reality. You come into manifest reality and you piss off the wrong people, you can be in prison for eternities. And that, I'm not playing any games with that. I know that to be a fact. Okay? You got to watch who you screw with. Seriously. And some people will just like, their eyes will roll when I say that. Oh, maybe your eyes shouldn't roll. So if things are not so black and white here in manifest reality in regard to the ongoing play that's taking place, because the play is real. It doesn't mean that it's lasting forever as you are, but it still continues. So I'm always kind of still looking at it from the perspective, and I have admiration and I have respect um, in a unique way. I don't have any more respect than I do for all the rest of the life, but for all life, I have grown into a place where I have admiration and respect for all life, more so than I ever have at this stage for myself. But like here, like being here, when you have, family members, there's this, or relationships that become, they're intimate. There's a growing connection more so to those things than it is for the broad brush of your affections towards other things. It's more immediate in certain areas because of the relationship that has developed. And that's what I'm referring to myself in regard to this being, which I refer to as Yeshua. Okay. I don't know if that's the name. It's like me having Randy. That's what I'm called here. However, my real identifying signature can't be spoken, you know, right? Same for you. Um, so I'm looking at this and I'm hearing the word God being used. Of course, this is Frankie Strange's book, and it's really a well done book. It's well written, okay? And at the very end of the book, it goes into some technicalities in regard to uh, so-called space-time travel, and different things related to that. And I think it's a quite interesting book to have a listen to. If you can go listen to the audio book version of it, find one that's actually more up to date, meaning not what's transcribed, but the voiceover that's used for it. There's some older ones that are very robotic and very difficult to listen to. So you probably want to kind of fish around for that if you have plans to go listen to it. I think it's a worthwhile listen or a worthwhile read. But again, not to lose track for what I'm talking about here, and this is in regard to the perception of the God of this particular so-called universe, because it's referred to singular as universe. There's not a reference to universes, and there is not a reference to you know a non-gender a non-gender expression for what that is. It's referred to as he, always referred to as he, and which this, I'm not going to be too picky about this, but obviously for me, if you know anything about what I know or what I've been saying, I'm not inclined to that. And even within the own biblical record, within the recorded text that we have, known as the Bible, within the epistles, the Apostle Paul refers to nobody being female or male, but it's all part of the Christ. And when you look at the code, now we're going to get into this, I guess, a little bit. When you start looking at the code, you see the code as being these different attributes or function. Like when you look at magnetism, right, which is vibration, and then you look at the projection or the inversion of that, you have electrical and expansion or oscillation, like this. You hear the wavelength of that? Now the vibration already pre-exists. It's when the energy and tension behind it engages that it begins to move. Okay? That's the inversion, which is referred to as light. It's referred to as frequency. It's referred to as color, depending on the oscillation. And the density in relationship to the field that one experiences all plays part. It's a simple concept design if you look at it from the encryption of the initial code, and then it unfolds in these many things. And when we look at the unified field, or also you can refer to it as in this case, the Partakai field, okay? Or you think of it as the morphogenic field, you can, whatever. It all becomes kind of semantics once you know what we're talking about. Some people pick on these words and they go, oh, this is the reason this group uses morphogenic field and they're doing these nefarious things. Therefore, the idea of using the word morphogenic field relates to, a fallen consciousness. That's just nonsense. It's just words, as long as you understand what's being said. So when we're looking at the field, okay, I use the piano for this because, it helps define things quite a bit. But when we're looking at this field, it's a very liquid field. What I mean by liquid, it's moving like itself. It's like I've seen this in my mind's eye, where it was just kind of doing this thing, and it's full of layers, and within it is all these grids. And if you look at some of the pictures that come through NASA, regardless if you embrace that or not, doesn't matter. But what you'll see is that you'll see this network. Sort of looks like, it looks like, synapses connecting to one another, like what you would see within the brain and everything. It's this huge thing, but it's very liquid in its movement. It's not static. So when I say like this is fixed, it means that the structure of it's fixed, but because it's living, it's moving, and it has a lot of fluidity to it, okay? And within that fluidity, because each part of it is harmonic, so it has layers to it, but within the layers of those layers, you have these grids or these connecting points. And within chelantic science, some of these grids can be defined, or a primary grid that can be defined is referred to as the Cathar grid, okay? Which is part of and according to these grids, which are mathematical, relates to what has been altered and what was the original code to begin with, okay? So in respect to time, all this is all part of the same thing, okay? Different functions, but all the same thing, all right? So time is words that we use. These are the words that we use, and how we define them is not necessarily what they really are. And that's really what I'm attempting to do, is to kind of, let's take these words and kind of throw them out and just look at it from its primordial perspective, which is vibration and oscillation. So when we're talking about different time periods, we're actually talking about pinpointed aspects of frequency. So everything's occurring all at the same time. So there really isn't past, present, and future. It's just perceived that way while being in that particular frequency moment. And that moves, like I said, it's fluid. So we have this perception, especially where we're at, okay, and what we perceive around us, okay, and what we perceive around us is illusionary because it's not quite what we've been told that it is. And that's starting to come forward in understanding a bit, okay, meaning the idea of the sun as an example. What is the sun? Well, the sun is, they're all gates. They're all part of, and if you look at the Cathara grid, you can see the gates. Within our own, this body, three-dimensional body, we have three Cathara grids, okay? And these are consciousness layers. So this is the reason why when I would use the word dimension, I interchange it with the word consciousness band because it's a consciousness construct. And it makes more sense to me. So when you start breaking it down and looking at it through different means such as this, it starts to make more sense to you in regard to, okay, we're not really talking about time, we're talking about vibration and oscillation and different degrees of what that is based on how slow the oscillation is or how fast it is. And it's not a perception of higher. We use the word higher. It's like, this note is higher than this one. Well, no, it's not. It just, that's the illusion. The truth is that it's just moving faster. So it sounds, the pitch becomes what we perceive or what we would end up calling higher. So it's better not to think of self as being my higher self, because who and what you are is not any less than what you are anywhere else. It's just perception based on the field that you're in regard to vibration and oscillation. You know, without going any further in regard to where we're at right now, because there's a whole lot to be said about where we're at, because we're in the most outer worlds, okay? And is there, just to throw this in as a footnote, is there places that are more intense than this place? Oh yeah, there is with these outer worlds. This is probably one of the most, one of the most places in its diversity, at least from my perspective, that people want to come visit because it just has so much here. It has so much of everything. I do mean everything. For us, it seems to be the center point of interest for most beings within this universe, because within this big play that we're playing, this seems to be completely out of order, and they're looking to assist to maintain its order and help its restoration. But it's sort of, I'm going to digress here. It's kind of like this though, and I've been giving a lot of feelings towards this here lately. It's like, if you go on a ride, right, and it's like a really, really cool ride, but when you first went on it, it was like really scary. I mean, it was like, oh, I don't think I could do that again. And then you kind of going, you're thinking to yourself, maybe I want to try that again. That's kind of like what this place is, And so there can be an addiction to wanting to come here and kind of just stay and hang out. And that's another subject, right? But it's a true story. But you have a lot of other beings wanting to fix it. It's like, well, maybe it's like not too interested in fixing it right away. So anyhow, it's like, can we just keep that riot up for a while? I just, I'm coming at this again from the very beginning. I said from the inside and then from the outside, knowing that the inside is not who you are. That's not who you're, transcendent of it. If you're transcendent of it, you know that this is another way to perceive and experience self differently. makes it a play. And all these things that we do here is like, okay, am I really, if I have children, no, if, some people might take offense to this. Please don't do that. If you follow with what I'm saying, you'll understand what I mean by this. Um, if we come here and we play different roles, I'll give you an idea. Like for me, and mm, who was my mother in this lifetime, it's a good chance that I was her father in the lifetime before that. Actually, there's a lot of evidence that supports that for me. Okay? These are roles that we're playing. Okay? It's not what we are. For the same reason, I have some shoes, and I am thankful to have those shoes. I have a few pair of shoes, but I am not the shoes. I just wear them. I'm just wearing it. And it's an identity while being within manifest reality. But who I am is not this. And the same for you. So again, it's that perspective, looking from the outside and knowing how to be able to look from the outside without even going out of the body. It should be intuitive, okay? That's how it's been for me for a long time. And I'm sure it's the same for some of you as well. So it's this perspective of transcendence and the construct in order to be able to experience self differently. So I'm looking at the attributes displayed by Valiant Thor. He's telepathic. He has all these skills and intellect, IQ that just blows things off the, just goes off the charts. And all these things that take place here, and yet this being is saying things that I spent 27 years with here, boots on the ground, plus years, my experiences, and some of the experiences I wouldn't want to ever have changed for anything else, because there were wonderful experiences, and in some cases so much so that I can't even really talk about them because it doesn't hold meaning for anybody because it was so intimately experienced. And so I wouldn't trade that up for anything, okay? I'm very thankful to have had those experiences and had the connection that I did and the relationships that developed from that for those who are outside of this field, so to speak, quote unquote. But what I've come to understand throughout the years, through self-contemplation, mostly, it wasn't external stimulation. It was internal discernment and a processing period that lasted years and years and years, decades. That I know what is referred to here in a religious sense or within a faith-based sense. And there's nothing wrong with the word faith. It means confidence, really. Okay. It's not what I have come to know. And I see a being like Valiant Thor being sort of like an evangelist, taking that role. And this is documented. I mean, this being was there at the Pentagon for 3 years. There's pictures of this person, physical pictures taken, and all this stuff. Things easily get covered up here. And there is definitely a whole lot of drama going on, and there is definitely conflicting objectives, what we would refer to as fallen, and refer to those who are upholders of the original intent, which was for the benefit of all life, yada, 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 all that stuff. I'm going to digress again. One of the things that I've come to understand is that regardless of how much I seem to be able to come to understand here in regard to our history, our real history, it still does not answer. I still don't have the answers that I've been looking for, which was what was the real reason for the digression? What happened? I've heard different stories related to this. I'm not buying any of them because either I know or I don't, and none of them has made a connection with me. There's more that we don't know. I'll just say, make that personal. There's more that I don't know that I'm not going to come to any conclusion or judgment about. And when I was involved with ministry and Christianity, one of the things I just found myself doing was becoming all things to all people in the moment that I'm in. I kind of conform myself to what's going on with them and how they relate to life and their circumstances, and I become that in order to be able to connect with them in the right way. And as I began to process different things throughout my life, through my experiences and suffering and everything else that put me in that position, I was able to cross that over to other things. And this is in reference to what I'm talking about here. What was the reason for the digression? You know? And I mean, I have plenty of viewpoints on the thing, but I'm not clear. And nobody else seems to be either. So there's always more. So what am I saying with this? It allows me to be more of me, not to follow anything, and have that compassion towards everything. Not selective compassion, but compassion towards everything in those conditions. Understanding. And again, I go back to what I have been talking about for a long time, and maybe I'm just this. I'm not a big person for titles, but I know people need to do that. I know that's necessary. But I would consider myself more of a minstrel, not a minstrator, a minstrel, a minstrel of telling story and being an apostle. Apostle means one who is sent, S-E-N-T, one who is sent, apostle of love, because I know walking in that space, there is no law against it. It is perfect. And this is the reason why I would say to anyone, who you really are is perfect. Because truly who you are is the essence of what that embodiment. Okay? And here we have a little spark because we're a subdivision of energy, and this so happens just to be another subdivision or spark of that energy that we find within all these different stations of identity, known what we call soul. And being able to allow that to be who and what we are within this present state while being in this station of identity allows for you to become more freer and enjoy things to a greater degree and not take things too seriously and just really be able to be freer. And I think within that process, I know within that process, that embodiment, more of self, true self, starts to flow through you. And more freedom occurs at the same time. And it's not about a mission. It's not about us against them and all this other stuff. It's just walking in that space and just being able to dig it. You know what I'm saying? So you have respect for all life. You don't have to join up with everybody. You don't have to agree. In fact, you don't even have to acknowledge the idea of agreement or disagreement. It's with what we do within our act without having to explain ourselves. We don't need permission. We should not ever feel like it's like, well, because I went through this for a long time. It felt like my words were falling to the ground and nobody was hearing with what I had said. It's not so much what I had to say was so important, is that I just didn't feel like I was relevant. And it just made me feel less and less. I've gotten over that. And I'm content with just being in my own singular space. And, you know, we all have those moments, but it's something that's really transpired with me without any need for anything at all, just me being me. But that's really the key, I find, is walking in your own individual space and not needing approval for it. And you don't even question the need for approval for it. It's not even something that occurs to you anymore. And the idea of thinking that you're not heard or whatever, or you know what you know. What you know is you know. What you know as what you know is what you know. You don't need to even say anything about it. And that's one of the things I had begun to learn within myself. I go, why am I needing anybody to have to say to anything? And it took a long time for me to move into that space, because you kind of spin because of whatever. For me, I had a whole lot of rejection in this lifetime, so I had to get past that, and that stuff can weigh heavy on you, you know. And I got to a certain stage where it's like, it doesn't matter. And it had a lot to do with the suffering that I went through in order for that to happen. I digress, but you can see the significance of where I'm going with this. We're talking about this drama here. We're talking about all these different agendas and things that through doctrine are convinced that we should do. And here's the thing. If you are who and what you really are, which is transcendent, you don't need to do any of it. You just need to do your thing and know that you are sovereign and you are responsible for the things that you think, say, and do. And being able to get in a space where you're free with that, and then treat everything else around you equally. The more of yourself, this is by my experience, more of yourself, of who you truly are, becomes reintegrated here. So you don't follow anybody but your own intention. I mean, I said a whole lot here, okay, and I know a lot of it could easily get lost, but if you go back to the beginning, you'll see I start talking about the idea of perception and conviction, indoctrination, and faith-based concepts. God of what it is, and if you know who and what you really are, and I gave a definition for it before, a formless, non-entity, all-knowing, all-powerful. You can put a label to that if you want, but you know where I'm going with that. You know what I mean by that. It creates such liberty knowing that you're not under a hierarchy. And another thing, just for clarity's sake, in regard to Valiant Thor, in which the testimonial, according to Frankie Strange, is within the book Stranger in the Pentagon, refers to the idea of eternal life. Who and what you are is transcendent of all these creations. So how is it you're going to have eternal life? Who's going to grant you eternal life? What does that even mean? See, that's the things I'm talking about. When I come to know what I know at this stage, and then I listen to this doctrine, and I hear it coming through, a Venusian, so-called, right? It takes me back. I'm going, this is definitely one big play. Because what I do know, compared to what I was indoctrinated into, is two different things. But you're in this field, you're in this play, and this play has rules. It's a script, and there's flexibility in the script, but a lot of it is set. Certain things are just going to unfold the way they're going to unfold. But I'm trying to communicate freedom, liberty. And I got to go with what I know, even though it's like a fish swimming upstream against all the other fish swimming downstream. You know, it's not easy to say some of these things sometimes. And it took me a good while actually to be able to say that this what I have said today, because initially I wasn't going to say anything at all. But I got up and I start listening to my book, my audio book. And when I listen to it and just listen to what I'm saying, I go, I guess I'm going to say something. All right, so insightful oscillation. All right, so I kind of basically kind of went over here with the time thing. So time is just a word. The reality field that we're in is fluid, yet it is very structured. It's harmonically structured. It's connected like what we would see. Because, let me rephrase that. When you look at the initial code, you start to see that within all aspects of this creation. You see it with, when you can take a look at the anatomy in regards to so-called biology, right? And you can see it when you look at it from a microscopic perspective, being pretty much the same thing that you see within the code. It's all the same thing. It just becomes malleable according to intent in regard to form, because what we're working with here, as we refer to as being physical, isn't really physical, but yet it is when you're in the hologram. And there's different degrees in regard to structure of the hologram. Like Darius J. Wright, he refers to a control center. This is what I'll call it, a control center, right? Where they have all these constructs and they're maintained. This is in reference to the halls of Amenti, which goes back to Thoth and all this other stuff. And so it's a real thing under the pyramids, and we're talking about frequency, which is the consciousness bands, because it's a consciousness construct, but it's still, he's referring to it as being outside of the construct. But in truth, it's not outside of the construct. It's part of the construct, but it's a control center within the construct that maintains these other, the external worlds. And the reason, so how do you know that? Because outside of the construct, you are a formless non-entity, all-knowing, all-powerful. You're not a soul. A soul is a station of identity. It's a subdivision of your energetic being. So we have holograms within holograms within holograms. Within the fourth dimensional expanse, or the fourth consciousness band, there is a multitude of synthetic, what you would refer to, I'm not coining this term, I'm borrowing it from somebody, okay, of synthetic-like constructs. It's very expansive. It's one of the most expansive in regards to the consciousness bands, and I referred to as it being fluid, the field being fluid. So it has the ability to expand because that's part of the design structure. That's part of the code. Talking about vibration, right? Vibration, okay, which is pre-sound, and then I make a sound. That's the energetic response to it, right? That creates the manifestation of the movement of that becoming sound. When sound has a waveform, that waveform is the oscillation of that sound. as you move along the field, and each field can be seen harmonically, just like keyboard, really. And you could see it in octaves. So each octave is set. It's malleable, it's malleable, right? Because it's a living consciousness field, everything's alive in it, but it's not like static like we would see with a computer code. It's not that. It's malleable, so it has the ability to be able to stretch out. I can take this octave and stretch out parts of it within it, and because it's not, vibration and oscillation is not determined on size. Size has nothing to do with anything. That's a perception. That's an experience perception of what things are. You can look at, as an example, if you go into a field, which we have, and then through the grid, we go into the grid, and there's this connection that we make within the field, and the operating system is consciousness. But when we go into the field, because it's formulated and structured in a way, which is a very specific structure, we can have this transharmonic connection to it and become embodied through which we would refer to as a template or a blueprint of our own particular signature. It enables us to be here, but it is holographic, and once we become that, we're taking on the hologram. We become the hologram, right? So everything feels real and physical and blah 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 blah. But on the outside of it, it's not that. And let's say that you move into that particular field or a particular construct in its entirety. A singular aspect of that construct, which is actually within it, becomes infinite. Size doesn't mean anything, because from the outside you may be like this, and it might be like this in perspective. But when you go into it, it becomes huge. So what's before the chicken or the egg, right? It's an illusionary experience. Okay? It's intended to be that way. So we're able to go into it because of the nature of what we are. We create these things because of the nature and what we are, But it is not who we are. It's what we've become and experience self differently as. And the drama that plays out in it, is very real. And like I said before earlier, there's consequences to certain actions that you have when you do things here. You definitely don't want to piss off the wrong group of beings, some of them. True story. I had first-hand experience running into some of that. So, at any rate, like I said before, because I don't really know where I'm going to go when I'm just going to start talking about this stuff in general. I have a logic to where I'm going, but by the time I get to the end, I realize that I wasn't very specific with certain things. This I will revisit. Like I said, I will revisit this often, enough to get enough people to start asking questions about it. That way I can directly answer things to the best of my ability, very specifically. So I'm just painting a broad brush, talking about a lot of different things that's all related to the same thing. All right, I need to read. I really need somebody else to read these things for me. I'm not good at reading the chat. Just the reason why is that it's new for me, and I've been doing this for like 15 years, and I'm used to just staring into the camera. And I'll keep repeating that. Well, thank you to everybody that's here. Sylvana, Insightful Oscillation. Let me see. Here's some of the Usai, Am I pronouncing that correctly? I'm sorry if I am not. Again, thank you for those who are here. Thank you, Daphne. Always doing a great job. Um, okay. Rollo? Okay. Am I reading that right? Okay. Insightful Oscillation. Your name is Rollo. Okay. Is that right? All right. Anyhow, thank you everybody for being here. What time we got going? It has been an hour since I came on. So I'm not going to stay any much longer here, maybe a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and I have things I need to try to catch up on here today. And so while I'm still somewhat fresh for the day, I would like to be able to do those things. So I can get ready for this weekend. Something's, something's, something wonderful is going to take place this weekend. So anyhow, if anybody has anything they would like to add, um, I know some of you just kind of stepped into the middle of this discourse. Yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention um, when I was talking about Elena Dion and her connection with Valiant Thor, it doesn't seem to be the same person. They don't speak the same as the testimonial and direct experience here on Earth that Frank Strange's, Frank E. Strange's had with that being, and actually continued to have ongoing afterwards. So that's the reason why I mentioned when I said something about that, I go, I don't know, because it seems to be so different, which again, it's this funny play that's being played out. And my suggestion is don't take too much seriously. The idea is my conviction, or what I would and have been trying to do, is to encourage people to know who they are. And it has nothing to do with the role that you're playing here, so that you can see things more clearly around you and realize, wait a second, this is really a play. It's a very realistic play because it's a real experience for sure. No doubt about that. That's the whole idea. But you'll see such conflicting things when you go from one person to the other that's supposedly associated with the same thing. In this case, we're talking about Frank Strange's, his experience with Valiant Thor, and then Elena Dion, however she pronounces her name, whatever. You know who I'm talking about, I'm sure. She refers to herself as being an ambassador of the Galactic Federation. So, yeah, whatever. Okay, that's fine, I guess. But there's a difference between the relationships. It's not the same conviction that's being spoken through this individual that I've seen with Frank and then with her. And of course, there's always the possibility of people making up shit. So there's always that. Yeah, yeah, thank you, Daphne. For those that are new, if this is something that you connect with, share it, subscribe, you know, comment, you know. This is a work in progress, has been for me for the last 15 years. It's been a whole lot of ups and downs here on this channel. And so what you see me probably talk about 4 years ago is definitely not where I'm at right now. I'm not I'm not what I was yesterday. So I always found that interesting. Somebody will respond to me on a video that I did several years ago, and I'm going, I don't want to remove the video, because it's not doesn't contemporary align with what where I'm at now. So it's all a work in progress. And a lot of the stuff that I had posted over the last 4 years, especially the 2 years prior to that, um, or within the first couple years of those 4 years, I was quite sick and I was in a lot of suffering, and I tried to hide that for a long time. So I was just going through a lot of motions, and I was very lucid, even though I was what I was going through. But I hid those things. I'm just saying I'm a bit different than I was then now. So a lot of those things that I would maybe subscribe to, I wouldn't necessarily do that today. Okay. Yeah, I have within virtually all the links can be found. Well, all the links can be that far as contact with me. Uh, I'm kind of updating that as I go through this, as far as posting here. But it's links to my, it's links to my website, links to my email address, links to Zelly or Zelle, however you want to pronounce the thing. Kind of looks like Zelly to me. But at any rate, which is a direct deposit for my account in my bank. If you want to uh, support this financially, I prefer that over super chats because super chats takes a long time for me to be able to get that money. It has to go through YouTube, and it takes about 2 months before I can get any of that. And I have to reach at least $100 before they'll release any of the funds. So it takes 2 months, at least at this stage. It takes a couple months before I can ever get it. So I prefer if it's like even PayPal, because I'll have PayPal there available if you're interested in supporting it financially. Um, yeah, so you can find most of it. Yeah, because what I'm doing here, what I have been doing, it's a long story, but this is all for it's for my ability to just survive here. It's for paying bills and rent, all the basic necessities. It's not for anything else because there's really nothing else that comes in and allows for much for anything else except for maybe occasionally having a Instacart and having groceries delivered to me or something because I don't have a vehicle. I don't want to go into all that other just to say that uh, I'm definitely not making very much income here. So um, that being said, you can find everything that you're looking for, Patreon link, and the materials that exist on Patreon. Um, I have plans in the future to be able to develop something. So things are in the works, and it's a process, and some of it's been quite slow, meaning things that I have said that I was going to do and I haven't been able to do certain things. It's just circumstantial. It has to do with what's going on with me and my physical health and all this other stuff that's had been transpiring over all this time. I know that's probably not something most people want to hear, but it is what it is. I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you the truth. So even though I'm being vague about it, you kind of can read between the lines and know what I'm saying. So whatever comes in here, it's really just for my ability to survive, pay rent, you know, pay bills, and that's it. So I appreciate all the sharing and subscribing and promoting this channel as much as possible. I'm very much interested in maintaining community as much as that can be done here online and having people co-create with one another and grow as a community and become available to one another. That was my initial reason for coming on 15 years ago for this YouTube channel. And so I'd still have the desire to see that come to fruition. and it's beginning. It's a slow process, but I'm thankful to see people interacting and becoming part of this so that they can find their footing and be active and interactive within a community that supports one another. Okay, so we need one another to be able to do that. One person can only do so much. The one person can do a lot, but it works a lot easier for everybody when everybody puts in the work to be able to work together collectively. One of the analogies that I would give for that, briefly, I'll just do this. I'm not preaching, but I'm just going to give you an example of this. If you live in a community where I'm at, as an example, I live in a mobile home park, and there's a couple, excuse me, there's a couple lots here that are barren, they're open, and at one point we're looking to create a community garden, okay? And what it turned into is just a couple people work in the garden for the community. And there's no way that is sustainable. It can't be limited to just a group of people, small group of people to do the work of the many. So it requires the community to work together in order so that things can move forward and people can receive the advantage of those things because everybody's working together in order to have that happen. So when it's put on just one person, that becomes too heavy of a burden after a while, and it's very hard to sustain that. It's not sustainable, really. So, all right. I guess we're kind of done with this. Well, at least I'm done with it. I have things I need to do, and I have to do some other things before I can do those things. I'm still recovering from this tooth thing, but definitely better today, so glad about that. Yeah, you can go on Patreon, and the basic membership fee is $5 a month. Um, so that's like a cup of coffee, depending on where you get your coffee, I suppose, but it's not much. And so, I mean, you can join as a free member, but I think I probably have 3/4 of the people that are members there um, are free members, and there's not a whole lot of activity with those individuals, you know. And then there's those who are kind of making up for those that are not doing anything. And there's like 39 people. This is like over the last 3 years, I guess. This is how long this has been. A little bit longer than 3 years, maybe. Um, Anyhow, that I've had Patreon, so it's taken quite a while for it to develop and build up to where it's at now, which is, not a whole lot, but so $5 a month. If this is something that you want to be involved in, um, that's really just a cup of coffee. So you can, for those that want to quit drinking coffee, you could just turn around and become a Patreon member instead. All right, folks. Yeah, Zelle works better than PayPal because it's a direct deposit, so there is no fees being taken from PayPal. So I get 100% of what that is, or I get a percentage taken through, PayPal. Of course, PayPal has to be paid, but yeah, Zelle's just direct deposit. So all you need is my you just need my email address really for that, because everything's linked already for that. So you just need to go on and sign up for it through your bank, I'm sure you probably have something available in your bank for that. I'm just, I'm talking too much now. It's time for me to leave. I'm babbling. I'm babbling. So anyhow, I think perhaps maybe I should mention a little bit about the workshop thing. Okay. Um, I thought I've given this at least at this stage I've given this um, more consideration, and I think it would be best served at this stage if I just do, for those who are interested, to do single one-on-one sessions. That way, there can be a 100% connection to the individual and their needs, and it'll make it a lot easier for me to do that way. I think for those who are interested, as I asked before, and I'm going to go ahead and say it again. I'll repeat this because I know things like this needs to be repeated. Go ahead and contact me personally, meaning through my email or directly through Patreon, messaging me directly, if that's the case, if you want to do that. And then we can begin to schedule it, you know, find out what's good for you. I'll work around whatever's good for you, as far as within your time zone, and we can get that rolling, and I can start. And if more people come in, then I can just create an outline to make sure everything's organized on my end so that I know what to do, because I'm sure it's going to be different time zones for everybody, or very similarly, if similar, you know, maybe a few hours difference, but either way, it's going to be different for everybody. And so I can organize that. And the only way that I can obviously do that if I know people are really interested. I've had people over the years, they'll comment here on YouTube and about things like that. And I always try to encourage them, please don't do that, because I don't know. If you're serious about it, you're going to contact me and we can get things going. Otherwise, if you just say something, comment on YouTube, which quite a few people have done, I can't take that seriously, because in most cases, that's the last time I hear from them. And how am I supposed to respond to them? Because if I've done it before and they don't follow up on it, so I think they're just kind of just in the moment, they're just saying something, and there's a whole lot of that, and it is what it is. So I just don't pay it much mind. I can't. So, so if those who are hearing the sound of my voice within this live, and that which is a pre-recorded version of this, just contact me directly, and you can find the information that you need to find within the description of the video. So if you want to get my email address, it's in the video. It's on my website, and all these different things, different ways that you can find me. But specifically here, you just have to click on that or copy and paste it and email me directly. And we can go that route, because that tells me that you're interested. All right, so obviously I'm pretty tired. Should be obvious at this point. I can't think of anything else that I need to add to any of this, if anything. Yeah, nothing. All right, folks. I'm going to leave you with a song just because I wanted to do this last time. Hopefully I'll be able to do it this time. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this, and as it closes out, I will be done with the stream. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and blessings to you this day, and know thyself.
so clear to me.